Do you remember that day when we were so young? Boom, 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 my heart was so done. Looking at the hearts it broke one by one. So soon, no one not
all you alpha handlers and puppy wuppies wanting a whittle bone, welcome to a show that introduces you to an exploratory expedition into the fuzzy wuzzy world of the furry fandom for what it's worth. Get down on all fours and buckle up your collars, for we're talking about the world of pup play. We explore who's got the lead and who gets to go for walkies. What really makes a pup? Why do we want to be just a silly little guy and obey what we hear? How does one even get into it and find their people? People purple. We answer all that and more, so strap on your hoods, Mythbusters. We're defunking, debunking, and exploring with an expert in the field. Listen in or you're being sent to the pound.
That is a really difficult
Rather
level of
aggressive.
energy to follow up on.
Yeah. You think he's like, that would get us all hyped and ready to go, but
You set the bar way too high. It's just
I
disappointment
love
from here
setting
on
the
out.
bar high.
Yeah, but it
That's
just
my
goes,
favorite.
but that's also why we have Charlie, because
Hype
you
man,
know.
Charlie.
he gets
I'm
us
doing
going a little bit.
All right,
Well-
easy limbo. Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and those that are coming in or will be listening to this later. Thank you. Especially those of you joining us on this wonderful
Joinking.
daylight
Joinking.
savings.
Ew.
Who didn't get enough sleep? Me.
The only thing I hate more than the actual daylight savings is the discourse around daylight savings and the fact that
Yeah, right.
every single time we pretend like it's an entirely new conversation we're having for the first time.
Yeah. They.
Oh, really?
you know-
Maybe we should stop doing this? Tell me that for the first
Yes.
time ever.
Well, the legislature here in Utah tried to pass getting rid of it, but they couldn't
got lazy.
decide. Well, from what I heard, and this is just what I heard, I don't know if it's
They all
true.
missed the vote because they were an
No.
hour late.
they got the discourse between deciding which way to keep it got too heated that they just tabled it.
No, it was pretty much decided right from the get-go that
Was
it was
it?
going to be standard time.
Okay.
They just didn't feel like it was important.
Well, because there's other things they'd rather
They're
do.
stupid.
Like screw the rest of us over.
Well, thank
I
you for
would
making it
rather-
today to this live stream, which is all about daylight savings time.
Yes.
I
Thank
would
you.
rather keep it in this time. I'd
I
rather
don't
go
care. I
try-
just am tired of it.
Yeah. One or the other, I don't give a shit. Just change it.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough about daytime, light, and
Daytime.
nighttime.
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 What's everybody been up to? Rue, let's start with you. What have you been doing?
Oh, well, I have been playing Monster Hunter. Yay! I've been in the wilds, been running around with my dual blades, going slash and being basically a portable blender and just blending up all those monsters and getting all those monster parts. And yeah, it's been pretty fun. I've been enjoying it. I know that Voss has been playing it too.
Yeah,
And about half the world apparently too.
Yeah.
yeah, even
And
so
then-
much as I've been playing with Rue.
You have.
What a
Handle.
no.
Handle. You know, we are a pretty epic duo. You know, you put all the wounds on the monster, and then I just run around and just slash it up.
So, like how you generally play your games.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm pretty standard. I usually play the dual wielder and just run around and
Rogue type.
rogue type and slash things up and be a glass cannon where if something hits me, I fall down into the ground and breathe in dirt, but I can hit hard, and that's what I usually do. It's fun. I've also been doing more karaoke. I did a karaoke night last night in VR, and it was pretty fun. It was good. I always enjoy doing VR and singing in karaoke. So I can't say that I am the most
fabulous at it, but it is fun and to get on stage and sing your little heart out. I can see why Charlie enjoys doing it for pause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Speaking
Yeah.
of pause and effect, Charlie, what do you have going on? Is there anything new?
Pause and effects wise, no. As
How about for
everything
yourself?
else, I have just been since Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was finally on sale, I was like, heck yeah, I'm gonna download that. But I had already bought Silent Hill 2 remake. I still haven't played that yet, so I am putting in the old cereal, new cereal law that I must complete the old cereal before I can eat the new cereal. So I must finish Silent Hill 2.
You're a
And I
more
kind of
responsible person than I am.
I know, but I
Yeah.
kind of forgot how scary Konami games are. Capcom's kind of a little silly. Like Resident Evil is like a little scary, but like you kind of get over it. And then Konami's just got like intense audio sounds the entire time. So it's like, okay, maybe this is a dangerous place. And then it's not. And then when it isn't, it suddenly is. And I hate everything about it. But it's my current struggles. That and Balatro. Can't get green steaks to save my life. So I'm dying, Scoob. But Click. What about you? What you up to?
I've been playing a lot of simulator stuff lately. It's funny.
Simulators.
Yeah. Well, it's like somebody said in chat, Monster Hunter came and took all my friends away. See, I just play games that nobody else plays, so I don't have to worry about it.
Just play Monster Hunter Simulator. Where you simulate playing Monster
You
Hunter.
simulate playing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing a lot of Flight Simulator lately. I finally broke down and downloaded a train sim called Run 8. The graphics are potato, but the actual train simulation is one of the best out there.
Oh.
Have you ever, speaking of train simulators, have you ever played the Japanese one? The like JR Rail, whatever.
I
Oh,
like
apparently it's like
passenger stuff.
it's like one of the hardest train vehicle simulator games.
Probably.
The real question is, can you honk the horn?
Of course.
Okay, if
you
not, then I
can't,
want no
what's
part
the
of this.
point? If you can't go toot toot, why play? But Nuka, what's been going on with you?
Well, one of the perks of being a professor is that I'm on spring break technically with all my students right now. By spring break, I mean I'm working a full week, but at least I don't have to deal with students. But I'm using the little time that I do have to both prepare for Vernal Equinox, which is coming up soon. It's the convention in Toronto for those who are out of the loop. I think it's in 2 weeks. And then in terms of gaming, I picked up a little game called Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop, which if you have not heard of it, you should definitely check out the trailer for it. It is absolutely adorable and is a delight to play. It has become my new put on a podcast and play a game.
Is it what I think it is? Like you're running a chop shop for rockets?
Sort of. It's like if you were to smash together a typical roguelike with like what's that one? Hard Space Shipbreaker, combined that with Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. If you were to smash those all together and wipe away the blood, you got Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop. It's also
Well-
adorably furry. The main character is a little fox dude named Wilbur, and it's adorable.
Well, that description did nothing for me because I have no idea what any of those games are.
Well, at very least, check out the trailer for it just to get a feel for the vibes of the game. If nothing else, the trailer is hilarious. So
Nice. Well, boss, other than monster huntering, what have you been doing?
He's been playing Pilantro, right? Right?
All of us?
Hola, Pilantro.
Yo, dog, I
Rhymes
heard
with
you like
cilantro.
cilantro.
I heard
Yes.
that tastes like soap.
Oh, you gotta just drizzle it on everything.
Gosh.
At least that's what everybody's talking about. No, I haven't played it at all. Just
you need
not
to
my
play
style.
it. You need to try it out.
the first hit's free, kid.
See, I didn't think I'd enjoy it, but it is pretty fun. But I can't get a run with a red deck to save my life.
Red deck's hard.
Why play with anything besides the plasma deck is the real question.
Because you don't have it?
I don't know.
Oh.
Checker deck kind of solid though.
Ooh, I do
just
like
seems
that checker deck. That's a pretty
nice.
good deck. What's your
Yeah.
favorite Joker? Those that have played, and in the
Throwback.
chat, since you guys are talking about Belantro.
Throwback is the best Joker, and I will defend it at all costs. That's
I
4 of a
like
kind
the-
times 4 multiplier. That one.
I like to do a good Celestial card run, so there's the Celestial Joker
that one is
that
pretty
multiplies depending on the number you've
good. Number
done.
of hands. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and I like that
really-
one real good.
I really like finding a blueprint Joker.
I was just gonna say the blueprint Joker. Yeah.
It's pretty convenient that.
I
blueprint
don't know if
Joker.
I've had that one yet.
It copies the Joker to the right of it, so you can just swip it around with whatever. Like, let's say you have 4 Jokers, each do like a different multiplier based on the hand. So if you like are about to play a three of a kind, you could put the 3 of a kind right next to it, so it doubles it, and it makes it
Oh.
awesome when you're trying to get tired up to the more rare and fun Jokers.
That coupled with the one that copies the Joker on the leftmost, they pair very nicely together.
Oh, what was that coffee napkin or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Welcome to Bellatro Cast, where we
Yeah.
talk about Bellatro.
Nothing but Bellatro and daylight savings time. Those two specific.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bellatro and DST.
For what at Bellatros?
For what at Bellatro? Oh boy.
Anyways, who hasn't gone? Have we got everybody?
Sammy.
What about the people that are in the chat? Oh, and Sammy, yes.
Yeah, Sammy first. Then we'll ask. The
Just
chat. Each-
just ignore the host of the show today. Just
It's
gone.
fine.
Just out.
It's fine. No, well, and I
Tell us your life story. Let's go.
I mean, geez, I haven't been around for a minute,
It's been.
like a month, because I wasn't there for the last 2 episodes. But that's because we were doing stuff. So, some of the friends know that went on a cruise with my partner and a couple of our friends. Back at the end of January, which was a lot of fun. We did 4 days in Walt Disney World and froze our asses off because of the polar vortex. And then we did a Disney cruise, a 7-night Disney cruise, down around the Bahamas and stuff. That was a lot of fun. Ate so much food, so much ice cream. It was good. It was a nice vacation. Needed it. We'd been saving for that for a little bit, so it was nice to go do. While on that trip, we decided to invigorate Charlie's backstory. It just, one of those things that just naturally happens, because why not? So we've decided that Charlie's persona isn't the dog, it's the hat. It's a parasitic hat, and it takes on the form of whomever ends up wearing it.
I like it.
Oh,
Like
yes.
Mario?
No, worse than that.
Like Mario Odyssey? I mean, it's you throw the cap and you just all of a sudden become a great big huge gigantic dinosaur.
Yeah, but instead you become a gray tune, and
You're
he slowly
he's
sucks
sat-
the life out of you.
Oh no.
Yeah, it got pretty wild, but it was funny. So yes,
Each
Charlie's
day, a little
backstory.
more color out of you just disappears.
Yeah, yeah. But the hat can't move on its own. Someone has to put the hat on or give it to somebody to put on. That's the trick.
And it's a really nice hat, so who wouldn't put it on?
Exactly. Who wouldn't want to be cute?
That's why we're going to build a dungeon and put it at the end full of traps so no one can touch it except for wild explorers.
He's the final boss. The final
You
boss is your
found
friend.
me! Now I get to return to the mortal world.
See? It's perfect.
I would love
Other than that, let's see. I've started having to consider doing some GPU hunting because my graphics card is old and starting to struggle. And I don't want to pay these prices because they're expensive. So, yeah, I'm running a 1080 Ti.
Well, good
And-
luck. Nowadays, the best way to get one is to
Just
buy a
another
PC,
computer?
buy
Ugh,
another computer
know.
that's pre-built and has all these things, and then things that you don't necessarily want or, doesn't 100% make sense. But
Yeah.
you
seeing
just
as
do that.
Seeing as I have a full computer and I just need a graphics card, but I don't know. We'll see. I just hate looking at those prices. And then other than that, I've also, thanks to Rue's partner and some other friends, I've been getting back into playing TCG games, getting back into playing Magic and been playing the new Digimon TCG and spending time and money on those
Sammy,
games.
Sammy,
It's fun.
Sammy, you are so adorable. Going over to your house and you have this great big huge card table and you had all your cards all spread out and
Let me show you
and
my
all in these
Pokemans.
Yeah.
folders and stuff like that, and you were showing them all off and just the glee that you had in your face. It was just so cute.
Well, that's what I did a lot of. I had many years of collection. I just, you go through phases where you don't do it for a little while, and then you're like, oh, well, okay, and then you spend all your money on it, and oof,
Well,
it can be
as
rough.
long as you and Ruse Second are having fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Last weekend, we spent basically the entire day during Saturday just playing cards. It was a lot of fun. But yeah.
And he said that he liked that. So you
Good.
should go and, take him out again sometime.
Do it again.
Mhm.
Well, Rue, I didn't get to have lunch. Do you have anything we can have?
Wait a minute. I've seen your show notes. You have one more thing that's super,
One
super big.
more thing.
Unless I wasn't listening, you have one more important thing about your significant other. You're talking about my significant other. I'm going to talk about yours.
What? The fact that she's learning how to drive?
I know! That is so cool. That's so
She's-
cool.
She got her learner's permit last week, and I took her out driving yesterday. And she's going to be doing classes, and it's great. We did more driving yesterday than I thought we were, and she's actually already doing very well. So I'm very proud of her for that. So
I will never get my driver's license. Yay.
Well, it's been a long road. It's always been something she's been very nervous and anxious about, and struggling with her mental health and other things she's got going on. It's not been something that's not like she wanted to do it, but never felt confident enough.
I feel that.
Yeah,
In
but
my
she's
soul.
like, I want to do this. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So
Nuka, you have some thoughts on that.
Oh, I got my PhD before I got my driver's license, and I'm not getting my driver's license.
It's super easy. All you have to do is come to America, have a heartbeat, and you got a driver's license.
yeah, pretty much.
Cars are death machines, and I refuse to get behind the wheel of one.
Fair. But yeah, all right. Well, now that I've said that, can I have a cookie now?
Sure, I
Yay!
guess. Don't say that I don't share, because I do share.
When you're coerced.
All right, so the cookie for today says, your reward is the walk, not the destination. So I just thought it was appropriate because we're talking about pups, right? So once again, it's your reward is the walk, not the destination in bed with a cookie.
You know, when you first said
Like a
that, you
frying pan
said,
a reward.
yeah,
yeah,
I was like a
I was
walk,
gonna make
like a
that
cooking
joke.
walk. Well, lovely. All right. Well, like we've said, and the lovely Cookie has said, today we're gonna just jump right into it, and we're talking about pup play and pet play, kind of in general. This
Benny.
one, hmm?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to mention one little thing. Our
What's that?
lovely patrons that are here in chat, if you want to, you can go over to the For What It's Worth Patron Club. And if you type into the lovely chat, you'll see that it will come up on YouTube. Of course, if you're enjoying chatting in YouTube itself, that's perfectly fine as well. But I just wanted to make sure to give you guys options. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. But yeah, so pup play, I feel like at this point it's something everybody either knows about or has heard about, or maybe
Has
even
feelings
knows
about.
somebody into it, has many feelings about. The main thing, like the main things that I wanted to talk about or focus on today for pup play was like misconceptions, discourse, those kinds of things. The misunderstandings that are surrounded pup play, just as they surround furry. I did want to start off with kind of a little bit. I know we're gonna do serious education time here. But what I wanted to start off with a little bit of kind of the history of pup play, because that's something that a lot of people don't know. And also the kind of where it all started is it's kind of murky. I don't think anyone knows 100%. But from the most understanding we have, pup play, or when it was originally came around, it was just called dog play. Began as like a type of slave play, where an individual would potentially be degraded for sexual gratification. This would be achieved through like a handler pet relationship. So you'd have the handler who's the owner, and then the person who's the dog, treating them like a dog and doing those kinds of things. Over the years, so that was early on, and this was like, from what I understand, like early 1900s kind of stuff. But then during when like the leather community kind of became a thing, so like 1950s, 1960s, that was where it started evolving into more of the pup play that we see now. So, but it still kind of stayed within the leather community of, master and owner with the dog or the pup or the slave. So, a lot of that just comes around from that. And I just think that that's interesting because, again, it's just something that most people don't know, kind of the history and where it came from. And then it's just kind of evolved from that, just as everything else has. And then we know a lot of pup play is, everybody knows like the gear and the hoods and the things like that. A lot of the gear, like specific puppy play type gear or pet play type gear, actually didn't really become a thing until the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's actually still a relatively new part of that. So, so yeah, that's kind of a rough beginning of it. pup play, I mean, there's a lot of like, whoa, well, how do you do pup play? What do you do for puppy, for pet play? A lot of it is just kind of based on what the people involved want to do. You can be as with a lot of things, even with furry, it's like you can be as involved or as intense for it as you want to be. So, it's like, oh well, we're lifestylers or whatever. It's just depends on what level of commitment and life you want to do for it. So, a lot of the reasons why people would do pup play, emotional connection with you and your partner, intimacy, senses of freedom, a little bit escapism, self-exploration, creative expression. There's lots of customizing and being able to explore different ways of viewing yourself, sexual exploration, power dynamics, and community. There's a lot of community around pup play and pet play as well. So, yeah, that's just some of the things. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling. You guys got anything?
Yeah, I have something. So we have something in chat right now. That I'm just gonna. This is from Firecrest. That's what your name is on YouTube. It says, to me, it just feels like BDSM merged with furry. I'm not a fan of the masks at all because it gives me some really uncanny valley vibes with the eyes. So,
Sure.
I just want to throw that out because I'll be honest, the first time that I saw a pup mask itself, that was something that I was like, okay, yeah, that does look a little bit strange or different or weird. But at the same time, I'll be honest, this first time that I saw some of the fursuits that are out there, I could say the same exact thing about that.
Yeah.
Well, one of the big problems with the pup hoods is we, as furries, have a hard time disassociating with the fursuits. So that's what we compare them to, and it's not really the same thing.
No, very different.
No.
It's top
But
fashion.
yeah, and with the hoods, and I know that it is becoming more and more of a common thing to see folks wearing the hoods out in like at cons and stuff. A lot of the hoods and the gear, honestly, for a lot of pet players, whether it's puppy, whether it's pony, whether it's your kitty or whatever, because pup play is just one facet of a larger, overarching.
About 50% of pet players are pup players. With you
Yeah,
on that.
pups are probably the most prominent, and then I would say probably pony play after that would be the next one, and then maybe down from there. But a lot of the hoods and the gears, it's kind of the same thing as a fursuit for a furry, or even like a VR avatar. It's a way to express yourself through a different form. And it's amazing the customizations you can get now with a lot of the hoods and things like that. So sometimes it's hard to differentiate the two, and it's easier to say, well, that's a kink item, and it, maybe it shouldn't be out or whatever. But it also kind of, at the same time, that hood gives that person the sense of self and identity as your persona does. So
Well,
there is that.
you bring up a good point too. I think that for some people, their introduction to the subject was controversy, because I know that a few years ago there was more of a conversation about it, but I think it kind of sprang up in the fandom as this controversy surrounding whether or not pup play gear, or pet play gear, I should say, is acceptable during a fursuit parade or to wear around general con space during the day. And cons were kind of grappling with this, and I don't think I think now we're starting to move towards acceptance of them in con space. But it's still kind of up in the air depending on the con that you're going to and the rules they set. There's also some controversy, not just around like, oh, is it age appropriate, but also I think as a person who studies fandoms, there's a small analogy to be found, I think, with the brony fandom. Not to say that these are the same things at all, but if you remember about 10 years ago, those who were around at the time, there was a big controversy surrounding the role of bronies in the fandom and this perception that, oh, all these bronies are coming in and ruining it for all of us. They're coming into the fandom, they're taking over, they're and there's this perception that they're coming from the outside and spoiling this thing we have here, right? Keep furry, don't let all these other things come in and spoil it. And I think that that was the perception. And because of this, we actually ran a study on pet play a couple of years ago at Anthrocon. We got several hundred people to respond to it. And what we can say, just for comparison here, about 11% of furries are into pet play. So even though it's sort of treated as being on the fringe and this sort of outside tiny little part of the fandom, it's actually like 1 in 10 furs is into this. So that's definitely a non-trivial proportion of the fandom who's into it. There's also among them, this is, again, this perception, oh, they're coming in from the outside. All of the available data we have suggests that they've been furries for just as long as not pet playing furries are. So just like what we saw with bronies, the call was coming from inside the house. This wasn't, bronies coming in from the outside. It's people who were furries who also became bronies. So I think that the same thing is happening here with a lot of pet play. So this perception that all these pet players are suddenly coming in and taking over and changing the norms of the fandom, they were always here. They're always furs, and maybe they got into pet play. But our data suggests they're no more or less furry than anyone else. They're about as highly identified as furries and with the furry community as not pet players. So I guess I wanted to sort of nip that one in the bud and address that misconception that this is some external force coming in and somehow changing the fabric of furry.
Yeah. Well, and that is funny because like for me, I I learned about pet play and BDSM stuff and more kink side things before I learned about furry. But furry was at the time, easier to kind of intermingle with, if that makes sense. Like there wasn't other community, and it just there was furry around. There was a local community. There were people I could meet, and a lot of the mindset was the same of just wanting to not be a people for a little while. And so that pulled me into furry a lot more.
Speaking of not being people anymore, that we have a comment in YouTube currently from Sotelo. It says, people in the pup play, tickle, and ABDL community all mention the same desire for escapism. It helps remove people from their adult stresses, fears, and worries and into another mindset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that what furry is as well?
Yes, it can be potentially a form of escapism.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you could say that about pretty much almost anything. Video games is a form of escapism.
Mhm.
Going to the movies and watching movies, and that's a form of escapism too. I don't know. That's just my personal feelings.
No, I am with you on that one. It is very much it's just different ways to be and to do and to deal with the stresses of the world, with the things that are going on. And yeah, it all comes down to the same vein, the same feeling. And
I mean,
this, like,
I think it's
we
very
hate each
healthy.
other because it's different. That is a strange concept to me.
Well, so Sort of going along with that or riffing off of that, there's a couple of comments here I wanted to mention in the YouTube chat here. One of them from Dude, I'm a Bear. Are pup hoods able to look non-sexual? They just look 100% sexual to me. And then a little later down, Firecrest says, throws me a pup mask with fur. I might like that better because leather is just not my thing. So one thing that I think I want to point out, I think that for some furs, there's a bit of an antagonism towards pup hoods and pet play more broadly because of an aesthetic difference. So in furry, the sort of mainstream aesthetic is cute, cartoony, and fluffy, and so things that fall out of that aesthetic are seen as like somehow anti-furry or sort of running against furry. Leather is often associated with along with like things like latex and stuff, often associated with sexuality. And to be fair, when we studied the pet play community, we found that the vast majority do consider to have a sexual component to it, although about 10% say there's nothing sexual to it. So let's not pretend that there's not a sexual component to it, but to reduce it entirely to sexuality would be a misconception. And also, I think that for people who kind of bristle and say, "Oh, I don't like it because I think it's sexual," I think for if you were to sort of dig a little deeper into that, I think for a lot of folks, it really is just an aesthetic preference. It's just, oh, I like representing animals with cute furry heads with big cartoony eyes, and leather just doesn't do it for me. And that's totally fair. You don't have to be into the aesthetic of it, but that shouldn't dissuade people from saying that they don't belong in the fandom, or that this is somehow not furry just because the aesthetic is different. Because we can go down this road and say, people will say, oh, I don't like the aesthetics of very feral suits, or I don't like the aesthetics of this one particular maker, right? And now we start splitting hairs over, well, I don't like aesthetic, I don't like the appearance of it, therefore don't want it in my fandom. And I'm not trying to put words in your guys' mouths or say that's what you guys were saying, not at all. But I've seen people who kind of, some of their being put off by it just stems from it just doesn't look like a cute fursuit head, which is what I like. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. You don't have to like it. Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. And I will say, oh my goodness, yeah, like Ruth said earlier, there's been a number of suits through the years that I look at it and I'm like, I appreciate your style and what you're going for, but oh god. And it's funny because it's like the fursuit head style. I don't think it's as popular as it now as it used to be, but there used to be the fursuit heads where it was like use your own eyes. And so they were always like really slim and realistic looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were ones that I was always like, aesthetically for me, I was like, no, thank you. I can't do that.
I think someone in chat even mentioned that too, that the off-putting part for them was being able to see the person's eyes. Because for some folks,
Yeah.
with mascot heads or fursuit heads, the big concern for them is, oh, I don't know who's inside. I have a good friend of mine who's like, I like everything about fur except when I see a fursuit, all I can think of is I don't know who's inside, and that's really unsettling to me. And I think you might actually get more of that uncanniness just by being able to see the person's eyes and go, ah, there's a person in there.
Sure. Yeah, if you can't tell that there's a person in there, it's a little easier to kind of separate the idea of it.
Well, and not to go off on a tangent like I always do, but here we go, just throwing this in. One comment that was in YouTube, one person stated, I want to be able to read it directly, but I'm sorry, I can't find it. It was way back. But it basically stated that the reason why that they were struggling with it is because it shows skin. And I'll be honest, that's why I don't like poodling, because it shows skin. But needless to say, going back to the topic at hand, I think that it is definitely different. And you know what? There are some people that have pup masks that they wear latex suits with it as well. So it's part of the general aesthetic. It actually adds to the gear. I know some people that have a complete outfit that goes with it itself, that it's more than just the head itself. So
Yeah.
Well, they have just pet suits now too that aren't latex.
Yeah, the
spandex
spandex
kind of stuff.
pet suits are becoming a real big popular thing, and that's the thing is, and that's where again we can start splitting hairs because well, I can get a spandex suit made with my fursona pattern on it and wear my partial with it. Like, are we still fursuiting or are we doing something else? Like, it can be a very um, you can get real nitty gritty trying to find like this is what's acceptable and this isn't, and then but then it just gets messy. And the other thing too is, yeah, even with the pet suits, even with the hoods and a lot of the gear, there's all kinds. There's leather, there's neoprene, there's latex, there's rubber. I have seen ones with like short furs on them. I've seen people who have just like more of the muzzle style. Like there's so much variety now. Um it's you could if you can imagine it, I would almost guarantee you somebody's made it. And yeah, the leather hood, the leather bondage style hood was where it was the first one. So that's kind of where it's evolved from there. But as it's become more of a thing and things like that, um, it is cool to see again in that creativity, just like with furry, and like fursuit making and all of that is just seeing what people can make for these things, and it's really cool to watch.
It's very minimalist when you compare it to like all the bells and whistles on like fursuit heads. I'm always impressed. Like it's not my aesthetic at all. You'll never see me with a pet play head on just because it's not the vibe I like. But I am genuinely impressed at how there's an elegant simplicity to it. Like it's very complex but simplistic at the same time. I'm also wowed by the fact, and I'm sure as soon as I say this, people will find counterexamples for me. I've never seen a bad pet play mask. Like they're
I have.
always really well done. Everyone's about to flood me now with images of it, but like when you see them out in the wild, I've definitely seen some really bad, cringy fursuits, which is perfectly fine. Again, you do you, and if it, I even a bad fursuit head is something that I could never make. But just vibe wise, I'm always impressed at how they all look pretty well done.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, as with fursuits, they all a lot of work goes into them. A lot of work and consideration goes into everything. And for a lot
Well-
of people, one thing I have heard people say, which I don't know how I feel on this, is like one comment I have heard is people are like, well, getting a pup hood or getting a pet play hood or pet play styled hood is cheaper than buying a fursuit. And they're like, I can't afford a fursuit, and this is my next best option.
Mhm.
Like there are people who aren't actually a part or do the pet play thing, but they're like, I want that physical representation, and this is what
Yeah.
I can afford.
Which is a
So
perfectly valid reason.
yeah, so it's also kind of leaned into that as well over the years of um what people monetarily can do, and they just like with all of us, we want to be able to express ourselves, and they're finding a way that they can do that within their means.
I should also point out, just while I think about it, when we think in the same way that when we think of furry, we often think of like fursuits. Fursuits are oftentimes people conflate fursuit with being a furry, and I want to point out that not everyone who's into pet play necessarily is the aforementioned pet. So our data suggested that about 20% of people who say that they are into pet play actually describe themselves as handlers of pets, and or 17.1% would use the term owner, not handler. But yeah, so a proportion of folks who are in the pet play community they may or may not choose to wear a hood or a mask, but they may just enjoy being the person who is the caretaker or handler or owner of a pet player, and so they are also part of that community. And I think they kind of fly under the radar sometimes, where people forget that you could be into this without necessarily wearing the hood.
Like
I
being a
wanted
fursuit handler.
I wanted to add also like because I have recently commissioned my own pup hood, and I just wanted to say that like it's a huge headspace type thing. So I have just like how when I got into VR and I stepped in and I was my own persona, that was a headspace for me. Like jumping into my VR avatar. Um, Same with jumping into fursuit. It's definitely a headspace, and I would have to say that the pup hood is it's a different headspace. It's a little bit more. To me, it's a little bit more. I know for some that they're like, well, this headspace makes me kind of more docile, or like a dog, or different things like that. Mine kind of makes me a little bit uh, demanding, direct. I don't know. It's just a weird feeling, and I just wanted to throw that out there when it's it definitely helps with getting into different headspaces. So.
Yeah. Let's see. Anyone get any other questions you'd like to bring up for this? There
How do
was
you-
one. Go for it, Charlie.
How do you choose the style of hood? Like,
I
'cause
mean,
I've seen some where there's way more complexities in the muzzle and ears. Some that are floppy, some that are bunny, some that are rabbit. But I
yeah.
mean, let's say for someone who's not a furry, how do you make a pup hood?
I mean, the hoods themselves, there's a lot of it depends on what you want. There is kind of most people who have looked at anything kink gear related has probably heard of Mr. S Leather. They were one of the first creators of people who started making and selling dog hoods, pup hoods. So that kind of became your general basic pup hood that you've seen is based off what their original concept was. But there's been lots of evolution through the years, but a lot of it goes down to what you want to look like, what you want it to look like. Overall, there are, like I said, the creativity of people is absolutely wild, because I've seen everything from deer hoods to rabbits to cats to badgers and raccoons. Like basically there's dragons, like if you can think of it, somebody's probably designed it. And then a lot of it is just the aesthetic. What are you looking for? Like I have two hoods. I have a full head hood, which is actually a Mr. S hood. That is based off of, it's colored off of my persona. And then I've got more of just like the muzzle style, where it's just like the nose and some ears and like a head harness, and that's just like a plain black and red hood for just more simple things. So a lot of it just kind of depends, and it's just kind of looking around.
Well,
The biggest
let
thing
me
is like,
let me
what do you want
share.
it to be made of? I think will also determine a lot of what kind of direction you go. Like if you want a rubber hood, you're going to be looking somewhere different than if you want a leather hood, or if you want a neoprene hood. So there's a lot of variety out there.
Let me share my experience with. I mean, Sammy actually really helped me to be able to make the decision of, the type of hood that I wanted. You know, I was going to commission Mr. S Leather, and you know, I had expressed, I shared with Sammy, I'm like, this is kind of what I want or what I want to go with. I want to try to recreate Rue and try to make Rue in in a leather hood form. And you know, I looked at templates, I looked at I looked for, because there's not a lot of fox hoods that are out there. All it is usually that's out there is pup hoods. And so I was just gonna do a pup hood that was Rue's colors, which is not a bad thing. You can do that. But you know, Sammy stopped me. I you know, that's what I was gonna get for my Christmas present. And I had everything filled out, and I was about ready to just hit send, and I talked to Sammy, and Sammy said, "No, don't do that." And he showed me a bunch of different people, and one of them that he showed me was Scrapyard. And Scrapyard is really good at being able to design like different species than just pups. And Sammy said, you know, really, you know, you can go with the pup hood. You didn't stop me from getting the pup hood, but you knew what my desire was, that I wanted a fox hood. That's what I wanted. And I wanted something a little bit different, something a little bit more unique. And you know, I think Scrapyard did a great job with that, and did really well at delivering that. Now it took forever for me to get it, and it took me, you know, several attempts to get in the commission queue. But you know, I'm happy with what I have. Um, so I think it's just doing your research, looking, seeing what you want to to potentially get. But yeah, definitely make sure that you kind of figure out what material that you want. Try other hoods on, because one thing that I found was important for me is I tried multiple different type of hoods, and I found out that I really liked a leather hood, but leather hoods, they don't breathe as much. However, my significant other has a latex allergy. So he's tried some of those on, and his face was all, you know, breaking out. So it's good for you to like test those things out before you all of a sudden like dive in and buy this really expensive mask. And I think the best way to go about it is get to know people within that community and see if there's somebody that's willing um, to have you try on one of their hoods. The issue is, it's just like with a fursuit hood. Fursuit hoods are very personalized, and you know, so somebody might not be willing to have you put on their hood, but overall, people are fairly open to. I mean, you know, about that type of that type of community, and yeah. Anywho, I find somebody. That's what I would suggest, and try different materials out and see what you want to make it out of.
So
One other. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. You finish your point.
Oh, it's a different point. The other thing that I want to point out is a couple people in chat have been talking about body types.
Oh yeah, okay, that's how I was
And
going to go with that. So yeah.
oh, okay. What were you gonna say, Nuka? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to point out basically what you said, that the chat had sort of brought up or mentioned a couple times this idea of, and I don't know whether this is the case or not. I'm not in the pet play community, so maybe Sammy could speak more to this. But is there this idea of gatekeeping behind it, or this idea of so some of the comments mentioned that a lot of the bodies tend to be very muscly, very fit looking people, and that there might be some gatekeeping in the community towards people who are more, heavier set people. Is there any truth to this idea? I guess, again, not being in the community, I turn it over to someone who is in the community. Has that been your experience, Sammy, or?
I think early days, like early on, there it was more of a like men's focused thing. But I mean that as in like the early days of leather kind of thing. These days, if anybody's doing that, they need to have a serious talking to. Any the local communities I'm in, other groups I've been in, it's very much an open, everybody's welcome kind of thing. I will say, as a chubby transgender man, that was very much a fear, because there is a point where if you're doing a mosh or you're going to an event, maybe you're not fully dressed, or what you're wearing is more skin tight. That was something that I was scared about, that I was nervous about, and it's always been open arms. It's never been a problem. And the groups that I know and those that I interact with, it's an open invitation. Any level, whether you're starting out, whether you've been in it for years, whether you have gear, whether you don't, whether you're just trying to, question and you're like, oh, maybe I'm interested, kind of thing. It's everybody's welcome. We're all there for kind of the same thing. So,
And speaking,
Well,
oh, sorry.
Sammy, I was gonna throw out, how whenever I go to events, usually I'm very self-conscious of my body. You know that. Me and you've had lovely conversations. I'm not the most physically fit, like burly, muscly guy. I'm sorry, cookies don't give you muscles, guys. I don't know if you knew that, but it does give me superpowers, and I like helping people with. Anywho, besides the point. Main thing is that when going to those events and putting on that hood, it did give me a little bit of confidence, and also it gave me even though that, yes, it's my markings and stuff like that, it people don't know who I am 100%, and that's what the mask kind of does. And so there's some things that I did at the events and nobody really knew who I was. And that was actually kind of a nice feeling, because nobody had a predetermined notion of how I was going to act or what I was going to say or anything like that, and I could act the way that I wanted to act in that
Well,
particular situation.
and I
So
think
it
that's. Oh, sorry.
go ahead. Go
I think,
for it.
I think that speaks more broadly to something that Koru was bringing up as well. So Koru in the chat says, we talked a lot about the look and appearance of pup play. How about emotional and psychological impact of this? And this idea of mind spaces. When I was doing interviews with pet players at conventions and stuff to sort of get ready for doing the study on pet players, I was struck by just how many of them spoke about this concept of pet space or pup space. And for them, some of them were like, "Hey, I work an 80-hour-a-week job, and I'm in charge of a big company, and there's this stress on me all the time. And sometimes one thing that commonly came up is I just want to be a dumb puppy, right? The idea of I want to turn my brain off, head empty, no thoughts, and just have like the carefree silliness of being in pup space. So a lot of people describe pup space as being this responsibility-free, stress-free kind of space. Especially if you're in the LGBTQ community, you're dealing with a lot of external stressors from the world around you. It's kind of nice to just put yourself in a mindset of just like carefree, right? Even though it does have this very even though it can have this sort of like sexual component to it, for a lot of them they say that like it's just the ability to just turn off any responsibility and just so unbridled impulsivity for a lot of folks. Or it could just be like, hey, I want to just get out of my own mind for a while, right? I'm self-conscious or I'm anxious. It's nice just to be able to go into a headspace where that's taken care of, especially if you got a handler. A lot of people talked about dynamics with their handler if they've got a handler, and they said that, hey, it's kind of nice to be able to offload this onto my handler. My handler makes all the decisions for me. I can just be sort of carefree, and that is part of the appeal for them as well. I think, again, not, you don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, but for a lot of the pet players that I talk to, there is some flavor of this to it.
But that's the thing in all that. Isn't that the same? Don't we do the same with furry?
Oh, 100%.
Isn't
The
it-
underlying
isn't it that-
psychology is the same.
Yeah.
The aesthetic is the only difference in many ways.
Exactly, and that's where there's these layers of things that it's like, well, it's only one particular way because that's what we've seen. And then the other thing as well that I want to bring up before we go to a break here in a moment is social media did social media and the internet did help explode pet play into more. Brought it to more people, made it more of a thing that people learned about, just as furry has. But also kind of harking back to, it's particular body types, it's particular types of people. It all depends, because a lot of the times you do see a particular kind of people posting pictures of themselves because they're comfortable and feel good in their body. That doesn't mean that they're wrong for doing that, but it is one of those where some of those kinds of pictures will circulate more because aesthetically, people like that for one way or the other. Like I said, I've seen all body types, all walks, all builds and people being a part of pet play. And it's just open for anybody, and it's a welcoming community, and again, that's where it's there's a lot of overlap, and there are some things that are more pet play than other, and so it all just depends. But I think, let's see, we've been going for quite a minute here, so how about we take a break? Give us, I don't know, what, 5 minutes or so? Get some water, and we'll be back here and talk a little bit more.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys on the flip side in a minute. Tell us what.
This time I might just This time I might just disappear. This time I might just This time I might just disappear. This time I might just This time I might just disappear.
It was the size of my forearm. I swear to God.
Yeah, but you have
Really?
tiny arms.
That's
You do
true.
have tiny arms.
They
Oh, are
have
we on?
small
Is this going?
hands.
Is this going?
What?
Oh, we're back. Crap. Oh.
Wait,
Oh God.
what? Where are we?
I hope no one had heard that. Okay.
What's that?
You know, Nuka's just talking about his big holes again. Nope, never will.
We're still on that, are we?
Oh, it'll never go away, Nuka. Well, second, welcome back. Hi. Okay, I think we've got it. We hope you all enjoyed your break and that was very productive. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. Save me.
This is your episode.
I
How about-
know.
How about you talk about some misconceptions that people have about pup play, Sammy?
Okay, I can do that, I guess. Well, the things I have down, I don't know. These are just things that I've thought of, that I've realized over the years, and some of them we have kind of talked on already. One big thing, which is kind of an obvious one, is it's just a sex thing. It's just for sex, and it's all about sex. And while it can be a sex thing, just as furry and some other things can be a sex thing, it's not that for everybody, and it's not that all the time.
Well, we do have data on this, and what I can say is that while 90% of pet players say that it has a sexual component to it, that's not the same thing as saying that it's all about sex for them. And in fact, we found that only a very small proportion of them say it's just a sex thing. For many of them, there was also a very strong social component to it, right? That, hey, it's fun to go hang out with other pups or pets and just, a bunch of us just being big, silly, dumb dogs together, right? Or there's a romantic component. For many of them, they said that, hey, a big significant chunk of my romantic relationship is bound up in the dynamics of our relationship, or are bound up in these pet play dynamics. So yeah, even though sex is a component for most pet players, for 10% sex isn't even a part of it, and then even for those for whom it is has a sexual component to it, that's not the only thing it is, right? It's got a self-expressive component to it. It's got a romantic component to it. It is worth noting that when we compared pet playing versus not pet playing furs to one another, pet players were actually twice as likely to be in a current romantic relationship. So it's not surprising that a bunch of them would say that it's a part of their relationship. So just to use some data to help address that misconception.
Yeah. I love it when you have data. It makes me so happy. I love your data. So yeah, and I mean, even for me, it's it can be a sex thing depending on who I'm with. Like, that only is on certain levels. So yeah, it can be a sex thing, but it doesn't mean that's all it is. The other one.
Oh, we all know you're
That-
all banging with those hoods just like them fursuits. Everyone who has them
yeah.
is banging. You know it.
That's all we do, and we just having big orgies all the time.
Darn dirty furries.
Another one, which I feel also has a large similarity with furry, is you have to have gear. Just like how you can't be a furry without a fursuit. Like, that's not a thing. Yes, gear is great. Yes, fursuits are great. Yes, they can help with,
It's
getting
also very
into that
expensive.
headspace. Yes, they're very expensive on both ends of the spectrum. They can help with a lot of things, but you don't have to have it. It's what you make of it and what you want it to be. There are pet players out there. There are pet players that don't use gear. They don't use anything. I've known some folks that are their only gear is being nude. Like, that's what puts them in the space. So gear is not a requirement.
And certainly in interviews that we've done with pet players, we've seen a bunch of them say that, hey, if you got the gear, that can help you. That can be a tool to help you get into pet space, but it's certainly not necessary. And like I mentioned earlier, upwards of 20% of people in this community call themselves handlers and may not, being a pup or a pet is not their role in the community. So they might not have one and still be involved very actively as an important part of the community. So
Yeah. Yeah, their gear might be a t-shirt that just says handler.
yeah,
There's all kinds of stuff.
someone's got to hold the leash. So
Yeah. But even then, it's not a requirement, and you can go as heavy into it as you desire, or what you can afford. Like there's plenty of gear, there's plenty of fursuit stuff and other things that it's like, I would love to own all these lovely shiny items, but boy, my wallet does not agree. So another one which we did touch on earlier is it's only for gay men. It's only for a certain type of people. And that is very much not true. That may have been a large part of the origins. It may be where it kind of stemmed from, but it's not. It's an open door. Everybody's welcome. Every walk of life, every gender identity, every body type is welcome. And just as with furry, the community is better for it. Having
Hey.
that. What?
Sorry to interrupt. Hey, Charlie,
Yeah.
doesn't Pause and Effect have like a song about like pups not being able to be at be able to attend a convention, or that they were barred?
No, we did have a song that was cut that was Lady Marmalade styled with pup play, and we ultimately shelved it because it was just not. There was just no way to get that to work.
Oh, I thought you were talking. I thought that it was specifically about the end of the world as we know it. Or wait, was it the end of the world, or
Oh, are you saying I think I'm a furry and I love it?
I don't remember. Anywho, so my point is that our local convention actually had a situation where they barred pups from being able to be displayed, because that was just something that ended up happening.
I know why.
Since then,
because of Davis Conference Center. It's not them. Davis
Oh,
Conference
yeah?
Center's not really into the sex stuff that comes with the furry fandom, so they're not really since they're on a contract with the building, they can't do as many things as much as they would want to. Like I know
They have
the
force
con head-
limitations.
Yeah, the con head has told me himself he desperately wants to. I'm sorry. They're they them now. Ugh, I'm gonna be better. They want to host these kinds of events, do these kinds of stuff, but they just can't. And in the places where they can, costs way too much. So unless y'all local fuzzies want to start dishing out maybe double the price for registration, we're gonna be
So-
stuck at the Davis Conference Centers for a while.
but haven't they changed that? I thought that they changed that.
Is last I heard, that's as far as I know about it. It's one of the reasons why, like, we had quite a few.
Because I've seen like pup hoods like walking around the halls of our local convention center.
Yeah, usually after 9, they're more lenient because everyone's kind of gone home, including staff of the building. So they're kind of like, okay,
The children have left.
do it, but like, shh. Like I've seen a couple of raves where, everyone's wearing their very more, I would say, eye candy like outfits. But that may not be welcome during the normal floor hours. But once it's like the last rave of the night, they kind of go, all right, just don't get any liquids anywhere.
Well, I guess my main point is that depending on each con, that's one thing that I would recommend that you look up and just see kind of what their policies are, what they're okay with, what they're not. And a majority of furry cons, they are welcome to people wearing pup hoods because they see it just like any other mask that you wear at a furry convention.
Yeah. A lot of that is the main concern for a lot of that is just decency, exposure laws. I mean, it'd be the same as, you can't be out in the middle of the day with just your fursuit head and a jockstrap on. Like,
Yeah, you can't
I
do
mean,
that.
you totally could. Just let me know where.
you totally could, but you might get in trouble. And it's the same thing. It's,
No,
you
come by
know,
my house. I'll cover you.
Well, and I remember at BLFC, I had an opportunity to interview a lot of pups. I don't know if you remember that episode, but that's what I did. And I think you and me interviewed pups. Is that correct, Sammy?
I didn't do the interviewing. I helped facilitate the interviewing.
Gotcha. Well, I remember walking around and interviewing a bunch of them, and one thing that I was very surprised about that I learned is that it's not necessarily a sexual thing to a lot of people. I thought it was just a sex thing, and I was, I was surprised that it wasn't,
Sure.
to everybody. So
And now
Anywho.
look at you. Now look at you.
I know, right?
You have
I-
your own hood and everything. Okay, so this next one I'm gonna say is, I don't know, might be controversial. I don't know. We'll see how everybody says. But again, it's also something that the furry fandom has to deal with.
All right,
It's
chat,
a zoo
get
thing.
your torches.
It's a these are people who want to have sex with animals. That's why they're acting like an animal. And no, it's a mentality. It's a a way of coping. It's escapism. It's a relationship. It's a community. It's not, again, that's why it's like a lot of the things and the negativity that the pet players deal with, I feel there's a lot of overlap with the furry fandom because they're kind of seen in the same of, well, they're animals. They're pretending to be animals. Why do they want to be animals? And so there's this misconception of, well, they obviously want to be animals so they can do those kinds of things with animals. And it's like, no, guys, that's not
It's the
what we're
same
doing.
exact thing in the age play community. Just because you want to be, you want to act like a kid doesn't necessarily mean that you want to do that with kids.
Yeah.
So
And so yeah, that's why I was like, that one, I think, I'm surprised there's nobody's at my door. Nobody's, coming for me right now. But that is a big one that is, it's just a big misconception. Other things and
well, it's just
things
like
that
with
are
fursuits,
similar.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that have said that about fursuits, that they're like, those furries that are all interested in, being animals. You know what they're into. No, it's a misconception. So
Yep, exactly.
The best data we have available suggests that it's no more prevalent among furries than it is among the general population.
Yeah. That's going to be a
Everyone's
thing that's to the
giant
individual.
pervert. Got it.
Yep, we're all just
Everyone.
people are just perverts. That's just it. That's just
So-
part of who we are.
Sotelo ended up adding they want to be something other than overstressing adult dealing with trauma. I'm sorry, bad with reading.
Neurodivergence.
Yeah, thank you. LGBTQ, stigma, etc. Headspace change is primary. No community can run purely on sex.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that's true for the BDSM community because, yes, BDSM. Well, so BDSM doesn't necessarily mean sex. There's lots of levels of BDSM. I mean, BDSM doesn't. The S doesn't stand for sex.
Well, Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna jump in, but I'll let you finish your point.
I was gonna say there are many people and many scene types and playing types that actually don't involve any. I mean, I guess it depends also what you consider sex. You know, if it's just the act of someone being penetrated in some form, yeah, that could be considered sex, you know, but then even then there's scenes that happen that don't include any kind of penetration. You
Well, and
know, there's scenes that are just for pain, you know, pain play or you know, wax play or just putting it in the headspace. So there's sex is not the ultimate isn't always the ultimate goal.
yeah. Well, and even if we were to be completely like, let's just say for the sake of argument, it were entirely about like sex was the one unifying thing, and we acknowledge it's not. But let's just say for a second it were. Even if that were the case, it's not mutually exclusive from the idea that a community can arise out of this. One of the things I like to point out with furry is that on its surface, it seems like this very trivial thing. You've built a community around people who like cartoon animals that walk and talk, right? What a trivial thing to build a community around. But out of that, you can get genuine community, genuine social support networks. The bowling years of yesteryear, right? In the 1950s, when there were bowling leagues everywhere, right? Yeah, technically it was a bunch of people getting together to throw balls down a lane at some bowling pins. But that was just the excuse to get everyone together, right? The community that was forged around that was a very genuine, authentic community. So let's not confuse the thing like the common interest they have versus the community that arises out of it.
And we all know bowling leagues are the most debaucherous place on earth.
Just the
they're
biggest
all just
bunch
a
of
bunch of
perverts.
swingers.
Clearly, they're people with a bowling ball fetish. Obvious.
Am I the only one around here who still respects the rules?
So there's a comment in the chat that is, well, it's not, even if it's not all about sex, it's still a kink thing. Yes, and kink doesn't necessarily mean you're having sex. Again, I feel like it kind of depends on what you're considering sex. Like, you know, there's people that are like, oh, a blowjob is sex. Okay,
It's also
That's-
a really good
Can-
shot.
yeah.
Can
but
I
then
al-
it go for it.
Can I also just add? This is my opinion. Fursuiting. To some, that's a kink thing, right? But to some, that's not a kink thing. So you can't necessarily 100% apply that every pup that's out there
Yeah.
that it's a kink thing.
Remember, 10% of pups say they have absolutely zero interest in sex. So
So, and that's where, again, we can really get to splitting hairs and get really into like deep nitty gritty of, oh, it's this, it's not that. Again, a lot of it also kind of depends on where you see sex and where you see kink, and where these things kind of fall in line for you.
they're overlapping
the
Venn
times-
diagrams, but not perfectly overlapping.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, if people are talking about kink, they're not always necessarily talking about sex. You know, the kink is puppy play. The kink is, you know, being ABDL. The kink is being furry. Like there's many levels that go into that. A lot of it, for me personally, saying a kink is the thing that you're actually into. That's the kink. The sex and then sex is different. So again, there's a lot of nuance, a lot of back and forth, and it's also just a lot of conversation.
It's
The one
okay, Sammy.
thing's-
I
Hmm?
disagree.
That's okay.
I don't
We-
believe that it's a kink thing, but you're right. It's a war on words, right? So, what is a kink? What's not a kink? Hey, maybe that is an episode that we should do at some point in time.
War of the words. Oh boy, that sounds like a mess.
If I
Um,
could,
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Go for it, Nuka. Go, Nuka. Go, Nuka.
I guess if I could jump in here just because for time's sake, I wanted to mention just a few more statistics and see if they turn any thoughts before we start to get toward the end of the topic. So I mentioned before that we did a big old survey of pet players and got some data here. So just kind of rapid fire round, some neat little statistics that are kind of interesting as well. One good thing about the pet play community is they said that when we asked, hey, how do you think the average furry feels towards the pet play community? Overwhelmingly positive. So the perception was that furries, among when you ask pet players, they say, yeah, furries tend to treat us pretty well. Furries tend to react, overwhelmingly positively towards our presence. It's not all puppies and sunshine. Certainly, there were some folks who pointed out that there was kind of a mixed response. But generally speaking, it was, the experience of most pet players was that the fandom was a very inclusive and positive place for them. In terms of comparing pet playing furs to not pet playing furs, some things we observed. Pet players were a little bit younger than not pet playing furs by about a year on average. I mentioned this one before. They're twice as likely to be in a relationship. They're about 3 times more likely to be Therian. So for some folks who are Therians, pet space may be a way of sort of dealing with things like species dysmorphia, or just, not feeling entirely at home in a human body, feeling something is wrong. Pet play may be a way of sort of helping with that. So again, 3 times more likely to be Therian, or about 17% of pet players would say that they fall into this category of Therian. This one might surprise some folks as well. 5 times more likely to be cub or baby furs than
That's not a
the average
surprise.
furry. Okay, it was surprising to me. That one I didn't expect, but I guess
As
maybe if you're in the pup play or
as someone
baby fur
in
community.
actively in the pup play community, that is not a surprise.
I guess as an outsider to the community, it was surprising. I guess when you talk about pet space as being like carefree, I can see how it overlaps conceptually with the idea of carefree cub space as well.
Yeah.
We also find that they're more likely to use social media, more likely to use programs like Telegram, very active on sites like F-Lists. Pet play furs were, in general, more sex positive. They had a more attitude towards porn in the fandom and sex in the fandom than the average non-pet play furry did. They were also more likely than furries in general were to use terms like kinky to describe themselves, to say, yeah, I consider myself to be a kinky person. What we did not find was any difference between pet players and non-pet playing furries with respect to education or income or socioeconomic status. So just some food for thought there as we start to wrap up here.
They got to really catch up to the bowling leagues.
Yeah, we got to work harder, guys. There was.
So to answer Timid's question, normies do indulge in escapism. What do you think sports is?
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
They get so involved in watching sports. There's fantasy leagues. I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
Okay.
Literally video
"Oh,
games
you
and
guys-"
movies.
Right. Well, and it's like, we just found funner ways to do it is all.
Can I tell you something about the sports thing that I'm like, no, this is totally a thing. On the cruise, there was some playoff game was happening on one of the nights of the cruise, right? All the public, because they have like a big movie screen on one of the outside on the top deck, and like the movie screens that they had in like the bars and stuff were all
Sports.
playing the game
Yeah.
because they
Well-
couldn't miss it.
If you think about it, right? People give furries a hard time. I mean, this is kind of off the subject, but
Oh, go for it.
the whole lifestyler thing, right? I'm a furry. That's my lifestyle now. That's who I am, right? And it's like, oh, you're letting it consume you. Really? Have you seen some of these people's houses? Whatever team they're rooting for, their car's covered with it. All their clothes have it on it. Their houses, they're plastered with it. I mean, come on, talk about lifestyling.
They're all cosplayers. They all cosplay as footballers or sports people.
Before this descends into an episode about sports fans, should we start turning towards final thoughts?
Yeah, no, but it is a good point, because I wanted to answer that too, Click. I was like, ooh, I have something. Yeah, I mean, if we want to start on final thoughts, that would be, let's actually start. I want to start I want to start with Charlie. Charlie,
Oh.
you've been listening
You're in
so
trouble
well.
now.
I've been listening because I don't know anything about this other than the porn.
Yay, porn.
Yay, porn.
The internet is really, really great.
Let's just say I've got a good
Fuck.
grapple on things when it comes to the doggy porn. My final thoughts are you got to take everything at face value, basically, it seems like. Because, I mean, everything that's wild and weird, everyone's going to be like, disgusting, cringe, fear. And it's just another, it's another way of, what's the word? When you accuse, it's like a witch hunt. That's it. It's a witch hunt. You know, it's like with the gays and AIDS. That's what got that witch hunt started was, AIDS come from the gays, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, you see people wearing pup hoods, and it's like, they're animal fuckers, they're weird, they're blah 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 blah, or they want to dress as animals, they're animal fuckers, blah blah blah, or they're sports teams players, they want to fuck the sports players, blah 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 blah. You know, it's just like all kinds of just
Do you
nonsense.
think that they have those, like, I'm gonna be role playing as LeBron James, and
LeBron
you're
James.
gonna be
Yeah, well,
role-
they do.
Come on, why wouldn't they?
Look, I'm just saying, if you go to a white person's house and there's a little bit more chocolate pudding than the average household should have, there may be something going on.
We're all a bunch of perverts.
We're all a bunch of perverts. We all got our own things. If it ain't illegal and ain't hurt nobody, well, why should you care? So, I mean, just let them live. Let the pup hoods come out. Is it sexual? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Who cares? Just, I mean, as long as their junk's not out. I would argue if you're wearing a full suit, 3-piece suit or a furry suit, and then you still wear a pup hood, I wouldn't say that's immediately sexual, but if you're wearing just the pup hood and a harness and everything else is out, I'd be like, whoa, now
Yeah.
it's sexual. You got a condom for that? Or all right, you're wrapped. Go on in, bud.
No, I like
Not
that.
like no, not me. I'm in the room.
In the room.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
All right.
I think that's all it really runs down to. It's just if you don't know, take the chance to learn. And if it ain't your thing, it ain't your thing. That's how we learn about kinks. That's why there's over 100,000 of them.
There's always more.
There's always so much more.
Yeah. Click. Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, it's just like any other group, like we've all talked. Escapism is a thing. This is just one of the more fun ways to do it.
Yeah. Short and sweet. We like that.
What final
Nuka.
thoughts should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. This has been a real wild ride for me.
ride, Raggy.
Because I think back, a few years ago when I first saw, pup hoods for the first time, I admit that the lack of aesthetic appeal to me definitely made me feel a little uncomfortable with them at first. One of the cool things about doing research is you get to learn more about this, and I think that in the last few years of studying this topic, I've got a much better appreciation for the community and a much more nuanced understanding about it that I really, really am thankful for. So I've really liked that. Most of you probably know that I'm an incredibly vanilla person. I kind of get, we picked on and joked a little bit about that in this show, but it's kind of neat nevertheless, even though it's something that's so removed from my own experience. As a psychologist, it's fascinating to study. I can be like that outsider watching it from a distance and be like, fascinating. Like I'm watching, zebra on the Serengeti, being like fascinating, watching with the binoculars and trying to understand it. So from that regard, I think
this male in the pup hood on his mating
Exactly.
display trying to intimidate another.
So in that regard, I just find it
Edinburgh
fascinating.
furry.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's not for me, but I can appreciate why people like it, and in that regard, thumbs up from me.
Vanilla
we have
is a
Nuka
very
approval.
valid flavor.
As
You're a very-
Timid says, vanilla is a good flavor. I agree.
Yep. Voss, do you have any thoughts?
Not hugely. I think the whole thing comes down to headspace a lot, and I know something that hoods I just don't get it. But I struggle really hard with headspace stuff, so that's not big surprise for me.
Sure.
And I guess my final thoughts is join a bowling league.
Join a bowling league. Yes, perfect.
That's our next episode's topic: is why we should all join a bowling league.
Oh boy.
Coming out soon for What It's Worth bowling shirts.
I mean, that might be kind of cool.
Some bowling shirts are sick.
All right,
Some
Rue,
of
what
the
about
first
you?
flag shirts.
I'm gonna say don't knock until you try it. Of course, at the same exact time, you don't want to try everything. Like you don't want to try poison, right? You don't want to eat that.
everything.
You might die.
Did Shakira lie to us?
I won't give
Not
up.
Shakira.
Shakira.
But that's my thoughts.
Sure. I guess I'll round it out real quick. You know, I'm a puppy, I'm a furry. For me, those are two sides of the same coin. They live in a similar space in my head, but they both also have specific needs that they fulfill. Between furry and pup, there is a lot of overlap. A lot of it is, you know, our identity. It's our self-expression and self-exploration. We get to explore our creativity. We also get to meet and befriend and have a wonderful community around us. And it's also just fun. It can be fun and relaxing, and it sometimes is just the way you need to end a busy week or busy day. And you know, there's a lot of similarities, and I say this for even between pups and furry, even between furry and anime fans and video game fans. A lot of things are, when you get down to the nitty gritty, stem from the same needs and the same wants, and we just find those and express those in different ways. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just taking the time to maybe try and understand a little bit, a little more than what we normally do. So that's the way I see it. For me, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of the same things. And everybody just does it a little differently. With that, I think we need to take a moment and give a little thank you to our Patreon sponsors.
Give a little love to our fans who
Hey, Voss, can you get the special music going for
I think
us?
we need the music.
No.
Okay. Let's.
No, I don't want. No, we can skip that for this
There
time,
we
guys.
go.
Come on.
Okay.
No.
Yay!
No.
There you
It's
go.
better than bowling.
It's torturing Rue.
I mean, we could do both. Rue is a great bowling ball.
I don't like to be tortured.
In this wonderful day, we'd like to thank our fabulous Patreons who are helping us get to our goals financially. We are here to thank Barnaby Panda, Nuka, Basel
That's me.
the Dragon, Black Baldrik, Ichigo Ookami, Lufis the Raccoon, MephistophEli, Plug, Tenax Raccoon, Benji, Lygris, Ausi Kat, Christian, Citrus Fox, Rally, Sage Lightfang, Tire 52, and the only pup in this entire pup collection, Mr. Victor Mutt himself.
What was with that accent change?
No idea.
Oh
That's how you
no!
say improvised.
Basil says you need to read it again. That was
No!
too fast. He missed some
No!
of
And
the
the
names.
music needs to be louder.
No,
And the
I
music
don't-
needs to be louder.
All right,
think
I will
it's
give the
time
people what
to-
they want.
No,
Do it.
no, I don't want
We'd
it.
like to thank our Patreons, Barnaby Panda, Nuka, Basel the Dragon, Black Baldrik,
I suffer for you.
Ichigo
I suffer for you.
Lufis the Raccoon, MephistophEli,
are we doing this again?
Raccoon, Benji, Lygris, Ausi Kat, Christian, Citrus, Fox, Rally, Sage, Lightning, Tiger.
Is this a new single?
And our only
Wow. That was impressive. Okay.
Thank God it's over.
I guess that's enough rude torture for today. For now.
I'm
For
gonna
now.
remember that. Basil.
This is Basil's fault.
Is torturing
Torture
Rue a
Rue a
kink?
kink? Yes.
Speaking of which, we're gonna
The best
torture Basil now. Nuka,
Yes.
will you please open up the mailbag?
We have an email from here. Wouldn't you know it? It's from Basil. So, reading in my best Basil voice, which is my regular voice. Hey, for what it's worth, I enjoyed your episode on furries and VR chats. The same day that episode aired, coincidentally, I had made plans to spend a one-on-one evening with my daughter. She has been interested in becoming a furry ever since she saw photos I took at my first FurCon. I decided that she is going into her teens. Now would be a good time to let her experience what it feels like to be a furry virtually. I started by creating a private instance for us in FurHub so that she could pick an avatar. This was a lot of fun for us to run around trying different avatars. She eventually found a deer avatar she really liked, as an aside. Good choice. Once she had her deer avatar selected, I took her to the virtual furry museum. Furry museum is such a beautiful space, it always makes me cry. It was a lot of fun to connect over the beautiful art and to talk about the significance to the furry fandom. We ended the night with some karaoke. I set up a private session. She was a little shy about singing, but once I did a song, she was ready to jump in. Later, I took her to a karaoke session that had some VR chat friends. This was fun for her to watch other furs sing. I believe that adults need their own spaces, so we only stayed until a reasonable bedtime for her. She really loved it, and it was a neat experience for both of us. I'm happy to be a part of her introduction to the virtual world of furry. The big wow moment of the night was her when she heard my voice coming from a purple furry dragon avatar. With love, Basel the Dragon. That is adorable, Basil.
That is a great way to do it. Like I don't know or understand, like, you know, being a furry and being a parent. Like I feel like that's a strange nuance for me. But it's also like it's great that you can do those kinds of things and share that with your kid. Like that's really cool, and I'm glad she enjoyed it. Like, and being able to do it safely and comfortably is also very important. So,
You know what? I have an image. Although I need to delay. Ah! Somebody, content, give content.
Content.
oh,
Content. All pup hoods should be forcibly sealed to your face forever. You will now be a puppy forever.
There
This
you
coming,
go.
this
Don't
coming
threaten
from
me
the
with a good
sentient
time.
hat.
All
Yeah.
pup hoods should be locked to
Aw.
your face with a key and lock, and the key is swallowed by you. You are only in the hood as long as your digestive system can hold the key.
And then there's one more. There you go.
Aww. Aww.
Aw,
Aw,
that's great.
aw, look at it, aw.
I'm glad she enjoyed. That's awesome. And thank you for sending in the mailbag email, Basil. We love getting emails about other episodes we've done. You know, if you're like, I'm really sad they didn't talk about this particular point during the episode, let us know. We'll read those. We love getting those the comments and the feedback, and all we want to do is just make sure that we're giving everybody a chance to
Be heard.
be here to participate, to have their voice heard. So again, we love those mailbags. And I think we are getting to the end. Hey, Charlie, can you clean up this house?
Oh, sure. Right away. Let me just go ahead and grab some things.
I didn't know Charlie was our cleaner.
Hold on,
Yep.
stand by. I just gotta dust off some stuff here. Let me
Grab
just,
the lemon
put
pledge.
this over here and just yes. All right, that should be good. How about a nice little cold air burst for everyone else down there? All right, that looks like a nice dusty area, all removed of clean things. Now then, hello. This has been For What It's Worth. Did you know we have a website? It's true. It's at forwhatitsworth.com. FURWHATITSEWORTH.com. We are also available at most social media platforms such as Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Facebook, at For What It's Worth. Telegram channel, just give old Rue a call and he'll get you in there. You want to email us? Well, you can find us at any of our cast members' names at forwhatitsworth.com, or you can find our individual email hide links in the website at the bottom of the page. We also have a SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/FWIW. For What It's Worth is the acronym. Remember to tell a friend, share the post, tell your mom about it, who's probably been waiting for you to call her since like 1984. Come on, what are you doing? Give her a call. If she's still alive, maybe talk to her. If she's not, it's fine. I understand. But like, maybe call your work mom. Everyone's got a different mom. And don't forget to thank the people who joined us in the live discussion on Discord and YouTube. That's a note I'm supposed to not read out loud. That's just me saying thanks to the people who joined us live in the Discord and the YouTube.
Nailing
Thank
it.
you for coming in and welcoming us to aboard. And our next episode's going to be Fursuits, Commissioner Etiquette, and How Not to Be a Suitzilla.
Suitzilla. Oh, perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you again to everybody who joined us today. Hopefully you had some fun, maybe learned something, and keep an eye out for when we'll be doing the next episode. Like Charlie said, we're going to be talking about commissioner etiquette for getting fursuits. With that, this has been Sammy.
This has been Rue.
Click.
And Charlie.
And this has been your premier bowling league.
Vacation's all I ever wanted. Vacation.
Again.
Get away.
And this has been
For What It's Worth.
The bowling